Hi, my name is David Gibson, and I'm a LinkedIn livecaster interviewing for RedM. Small efforts, big impact. RedM is a grassroots movement that inspires and equips everyday professionals to make a difference in the lives of survivors of sex trafficking. And with me today is a speaker who will be featured in the upcoming Red Summit, Dottie Lasser. Dottie, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad that you invited me. Thank you.
So I want to be able to get straight into it because attention span is so short in today's culture. Given that we've got somebody's attention right now, what is it that the message that you want to get across to be able to capture people and then be able to bring them into what you're doing?
That human trafficking happens here, wherever here is for you. So I notice people always say it happens over there, but trust me, it's happening on your block, on your corner. And just as an attention getter that we all need to know as adults, any minor in stripping, porn, or prostitution is automatically a victim of trafficking.
So you could say it happens everywhere. What about, like, is there any differentiation in like demographics as far as like the people that are lured into this? And I shouldn't even make the assumption lured into, that are captured, kidnapped, whatever. Are there any differences there?
And that's a good point. They often are lured. In fact, if they weren't lured, they would be kidnapping victims, and we'd be talking about a different set of crimes. So yes, they are groomed and lured, tricked. And to give you an example of the wide variety, trafficking does not discriminate. Last year, I rescued a victim, and when we found her, her family sent a private jet to pick her up. And then contrast that, everyone in between, down to someone with actually no social ties whatsoever on this world, like a young adult who there was actually no adult in the world that knew she was alive. So all the way from so wealthy they have a private jet to absolutely nothing on the world, and everybody in between. Men, women, smart, cheerleaders, disabled, mentally deficient, male, female, every state in the United States, every country in the world. There is no place it is not occurring.
So obviously this is happening to a very wide range of people, and you're saying it's happening everywhere. How do we take somebody that is, per se, even like myself, who's, very naive to what's taking place, or unknowledgeable of those situations? What are some of the things that those people need to be able to know to be able to, I guess, either better combat or be able to better help somebody like you in the position that you're in?
Well, the most wonderful, amazing collaboration happens when civilians gather information correctly and give it to law enforcement. And then it's swift, it's quick, it works. Sometimes it doesn't, but most times it does. And so being aware, taking some photographs if you safely can, documenting, traffic that comes and goes in a place that maybe it shouldn't, such as one case I worked on where it was a chiropractic clinic and all the patients were men, and they would come like on their lunch hour. There would be a whole bunch of them. So there was actually a doctor ordering prescriptions for massage, but the massage was actually prostitution. So someone in the community made a tip. I led a human trafficking task force in Orange County, California. That got to our task force. We worked on it together, and we were rescuing victims very quickly. And luckily, we were able to get them to safety. And because of that tip, we actually interrupted the bad guys bringing 5 more victims into the United States. So you may think that call doesn't work, but actually it does.
So as far as, like you said there, the bad guys coming from out of states, where is the origination of that? And like, is it always like an international, or is it a domestic thing as far as people that are, I guess, coming and going in the US? Like, what does that picture look like?
Well, it depends on where I am. So when I was doing immigration law, of course, our victims were from Central America, Mexico, El Salvador, any of those countries that line up together. Then we also had some from Nepal. We saw a lot of Nepalis, specifically working in gas stations, again, throughout the United States. Then when I was working missing persons, it was all U.S. citizens targeted that had gone missing. And they were gone missing due to the trafficking. And I thought I was getting out of trafficking and maybe doing something different. And I quickly began calling it fast food trafficking because I had so many cases lined up in a row. It was like an assembly line of trying to rescue them, take one deep breath, and boom, my phone would ring again, and we're off to the races. So I was literally doing nonstop 24/7, even on Christmas. So
Wow.
it's U.S. citizens, it's teens and young adults. I even had a baby selling case right here out of San Antonio. I got her back, which was very scary because she was literally only days old. And I thought, oh my gosh, that child, there's no way a picture is going to help. There's no way a flyer is going to help. Nobody's going to see her. But we did it. So, it presents itself in many disguises. And it depends on what disguise you're looking for is what you will find.
So can you dive more into that case? Like that like to me is just like mind boggling. Like how does somebody like transact a baby? Like what went wrong there? Like how does that happen? That's one of those things for me. Like I said, I'm very naive to all of these things and that are happening in that portion of the world. How does something like that happen?
Well, in that particular case, there was a young, very impoverished mother who unexpectedly became pregnant with her third child. And I don't know if you've had babies a lot, but I hear that a lot. The third one, some people aren't expecting that. Some people do, but in this case, due to a lot of outside circumstances, it wasn't ideal. And she was crying early on to a family member. And the family member said, oh, I've got this. I'll help you. We'll help you adopt it. And the mother was young and overwhelmed and kind of agreed to it, but not really. So the family member was more of an older person that was kind of taking advantage of her. As they were kids, she had saved her for something bad. And so this woman felt a little bit of pressure or deference to this powerful family member. And so as the baby began to develop, the mother, of course, changed her sadness and began to get happy, actually gave birth and said, I don't want to, I'm keeping my baby. There's no way I'm keeping it. Well, along the way, this powerful, not in our eyes powerful, but in that woman's eyes powerful woman had her sign a piece of paper saying she owed him money. And so when that happened, she whipped out this piece of paper that would not hold up in court, that was not legal in any way, and said, that baby's mine. And she took her from the hospital. And thank God the mother reached out to me because many people couldn't have understand that. Like you said, I'm naive. How could that happen? You've got a mother and a baby. Who could separate them? Well, if you're a bad guy and you've done it many times, it's very easy to groom the environment to work in your favor. So, and it's also very easy to take opportunity and use it like a hammer. And so, when said day turned into the scheme turned into now the baby's born. Well, with a lot of pressure, and I mean a lot, I'm talking about everything I had as far as media, social media, video, sound. We figured out where the child likely was, and we put flyers like you can't believe. I mean, like we wallpapered the city. And the law enforcement where the baby was would not help. They would not help at all. Now, the father had never known any of this, and he was devastated. Thank God, though, he and his wife worked together. And with their help, with me getting all the information I could, I figured out a way to engage the law enforcement where they lived, which was a separate police department. That police department put out a public notice saying if a child wasn't returned, they'd file kidnapping on Monday. This was like Friday. Saturday afternoon, the baby appears with an attorney at the police department that wouldn't help us, by the way, and the baby was returned. In my investigation, I had found out that the person that had them The child was on kidney dialysis, was in her 20s, and was destitute. So it's not ideal to adopt a child in this circumstances, especially when it's been stolen. We found out she had already put her on food stamps and other type of benefits, and I think it was actually a money scheme. And sadly, it could have gotten worse. Luckily, it was only days. I don't know what was going to happen next, but it was definitely some sort of money scheme that had already been set up before that child. They were ready to go the second that child was born. And luckily, I have great people who give me information that might, risk their jobs, and great family that told me everything straight. They didn't mess around lying with me. They just said, here's what happened. I didn't mean it. And sadly, one police department failed, but another one stepped up. And months later, the father's phone accidentally dialed me. I think one of the kids was playing with it. And I heard them all laughing in the background and playing. And eventually the father comes on and realizes it's me. And he thanked me so much. He said, we're great. We're together. We're all happy. And it's because you helped us.
So that's a great leeway to my next question. So obviously, this takes a lot of work, and this takes a very strong moral character and emotional strength to be able to do this kind of work. How does it feel for you when you are successful in these cases? Like, can you take me through that elation for you? How does that feel?
Well, it's everything. It doesn't have to be my kid to be loved. I look at them all as if they're my child, and I love my children immensely. And so when I get tired and I think I can't do it, I just remember, what if it was them? And then I push forward. And so finally, when we get those happy moments, I like to sit back, not interfere, not be a part of it, but to absorb it. And of course, that fuels me up for the next one, which literally will come in minutes later. There's not a long time to get to reminisce. But in that case, that was the happiest laughter I will never forget.
Take me through, what was it like? Because obviously, there's not many high school guidance counselors that are pushing people into getting into this kind of profession. How did you get into this? And then what was it like the very first time you helped help somebody survive or be able to get out of the situation that they were in?
I guess that as a child, I always abhorred slavery. And I thought, what would I do if I had lived when slavery existed? Would I have just hit everyone I could, or would I have combated the system? And I thought, well, I guess I'll never know. I was about 8, 9 years old when I, kind of thought that to myself. And then in 1998 or 99, I heard this quick just blip of a news story that said there was a ship with 80 kids on it that were bound for slavery, and the crew had abandoned it when they realized our U.S. military was monitoring it. And I was furious. I was so mad at two things: everything to do with that ship and any adult that had something to do with it, and at myself, because I was in no position to help. I was a horse trainer, loved rescuing horses and training them, and that's all I was. I was raising my kids and riding horses. And I went back to college like right after that, and woke up literally. You get to college and you fill the boxes in. You go, how do I get out of here? And so I wake up in my master's program to a speaker from the State Department that talks about modern slavery. First, except for that ship, the first I knew about it in the United States, and I knew that's what I was meant to do. So I started that day in 2003, and I just knew exactly what I would do for the next 10 years, which is now turned into 17 years that I've done it. And it's more of a calling than a profession. More often than not, I've not had what I needed. I've not had funds or money to adequately do these cases, but somehow I pull it off. So it can be exhausting, to say the least. There should be a different word for that, but I don't know what it is.
I mean, so do you feel like you're driven through like your passion for being able to do this? Like you said, this fills you up, like one case fills you up for the next case to be able to just keep going?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I have an innate, I mean, we all do, but I somehow pulled mine out at the right moment sense of justice and freedom. And I'm very, very attracted to freedom. And I'm very, very angered by those that would enslave others. It's not, I think we can't tolerate it in a civil society. We really can't. We can't be civil and have that happen here.
So what are some of the things that, other than just, basic awareness, how can some of the other people like out there be able to help you to be able to keep moving forward and keep, supporting you in what you're doing?
Well, I could use a jet, and I say that not lightly. Some of the hardest things I have to do, a lot of times the bad guys have stolen the ID or held the ID of victims, U.S. citizen and immigrants. And so one of the toughest things I have to do is move around so I can get them to safety or get them to treatment or you name it. And so the first problem you have is identification. And that becomes very, very difficult in an airport setting. However, I have overcome it many times. Again, you're just sitting looking at this wall thinking, I don't know if I can do it. And yet I do. We do not have enough money to help the victims and their families or to provide security. One of the very expensive things, if I'm going to help somebody, I can't then go, oh, it'll be okay. And knowing that we have criminals that would do anything to keep their enterprise. I mean, each victim's worth minimum of $300,000 per year. And so I can't just walk in and go, oh, come with me and not be prepared to protect them. And so that's one of the larger expenses we have is security, transportation, moving them. I can't move them in a straight line. I have to move them multiple times till I figure out whether or not we have a bad guy following us or not. I need a lot of communications equipment, so it's not ideal to be using the same phones all the time. We also I've done a lot of expert witness testimony, which again, my client is not going to be somebody that can pay for that usually, and that's where I've freed them the second time. A lot of times once we freed them from the bad guys, that's only the beginning. No matter how hard that is, that's like 20%. 80% comes next. And a lot of times they are caught up into all kinds of court proceedings, whether it's criminal, civil, maybe the bad guy married them and we got to get them divorced. We got to do child custody. We've got to separate them from those children that were created due to the trafficking. Sometimes the bad guys have purposely gotten them convicted. We have to work at overturning that. And so I spend a lot of my time rescuing them from the court system. And again, that's not cheap, easy, or free.
Wow, there's so much of that. So obviously, so you're doing expert witness stuff. You're helping. You're saying 80% of it's actually after they've been rescued. And then before that, you said one of the things that really struck me there is you saying that some of these people can be worth up to $300,000 a year to the criminal enterprise. How is that?
Well, they're selling sex usually. There's labor too, and they're worth whatever that job is. But if we're focused on sex, average sex act depends on where you are. It could be $25 a day, and that's going to be 40 men. And if it's like 160 a day, it's going to always add up to about 1,000 a day. That's the quota that victim must come up with. And so those guys aren't just going to cut loose at $300,000. Now, if they're doing images like porn and video and then that, or if they're minors, then that goes up from there, and that's limitless. Like it never stops. It's like cha-ching every minute. And so they're not going to let go of that victim just because she wants to leave. And they'll do everything they can. So sometimes I have to protect the family. Their bad guy becomes my bad guy, so I've got to protect myself. So yeah, it's a lot. I divide the cases into stages. So stage 1 would be that 20% I'm talking about. Yep. And that takes about $24,000 if we were to pay our team to do what we're supposed to do and to have everything I need. And then stage 2, that would be transporting them to a safe place, figuring out what medical and other help that they need. And, that one, it can start at around 10,000 and go up depending on what kind of problems that they have. Then stage 3, we've got to start them over in some sort of life. So that might be getting them an apartment, furniture, everything, or it might be just helping to pay rent with someone that is trusted, that they've known. And maybe so instead of just having them be a burden on that person, we want to try to have them pay their share of the expenses while they're getting themselves healed or getting their ID. There's a period there that they really shouldn't try to work for a while. And, ideally, I'd like to relieve that burden. I've been able to do that several years of the 17, but certainly not all of them. And then in that meantime, while we're doing that, I try to build up all their social ties. And that's the most important thing, get them hooked up with what their life's going to be like in the future. So, where are they going to go to school? Are they going to have a church or some other social group? And I kind of laugh. Wherever I go, I make them the most important person in that city. I mean, I come in and I tell people, this is the most important person in your city, and I want you to treat her that way, and I'll be back if you don't. And so I do a lot of that, and it works. If we just love and surround people with love, it does win. It's a weapon, and I use it all the time.
Wow. And so, like you said, you've been doing this for 17 years. What has changed over that time span and in your career of being able to combat human trafficking?
Well, until March the 8th of this year, I would tell you absolutely nothing. And I don't mean to sound cynical, but the first case I ever worked is just as difficult as the one I worked last March. And the first case, to go back to your question, I missed that.
Yeah.
One of the early cases I worked, I helped several people, and then about a year into doing this in Houston on the Human Trafficking Task Force, I triggered the largest rescue of human trafficking victims ever in the United States in 2005. And rescuing one victim led to the rescue of 120 others and many prosecutions.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I never took really much notice or credit for that until a few years ago, because it was so big, it was so violent. It existed for 20 years, and they were literally bringing in truckloads of new victims every 2 weeks for 20 years. So the 120 was just a snapshot of the thousands that they had victimized. And I met some of the others later that no one ever knew about. And it was very brutal. And so anyhow, thanks to a brave minor, a 16-year-old who reached out for help, and me being able to help her effectively, as we discussed, those guys now are not getting out of jail.
So you mentioned March 8th of this year. So what changed at that point in time? Like you said, nothing had changed up to that point. And then now what? I'm guessing that kind of correlates with some of the recent pandemic issues.
Well, I thought I would get busier, which I didn't know how that would be possible. Like, I was going to seriously think about like turning my phone off because I couldn't stop. I mean, it was every day, 17 years, almost every day, even Christmas, Sundays, new cases, parents, my kid's been taken, whatever. And I used to joke that I vacation for minutes, not hours or days. And that literally is the only way I can describe how prolific it was. And then on March the 8th, that's the last trafficking case I've had. I've had some older ones, but nothing new. And I started wondering why. Why is that the case? Well, I looked, and there's been some major, large-scale, tens of thousands of upper-level bad guys arrested. So prior to that, I used to say they're harvesting our kids. And they were. I mean, I was doing everything from regular street prostitution to pornography to satanic ritual abuse to baby breeding. I mean, everything you can't imagine exists right next to you was happening. And then like screeching halt. And So I looked at the arrest on the DOJ's website. Now, that's not all of them, but the ones they publicized or put press releases out were literally some of the largest organizations I never thought I'd see busted. And then I saw that they shut off the land, sea, and air routes with the military. That was due to the pandemic, but also a shift in our resources to focus on this. And then just now today, they've released a report about the Ukraine and Hunter Biden, and somehow sex trafficking is involved in that. And so I haven't read it yet, but I'm like, this is why I'm not busy. The high level head of the Hydra is being decapitated. And I'm so grateful that I get to live to see that happen. I mean, you see the smile? It wasn't
Yes, I
always
do.
there when I was rescuing babies from sex traffickers. It's hard to smile when you do that. And so since March 8th, I feel like I've been on vacation. I'm still doing things that I do, but not that scared, terrified mom or dad calling me, explaining what's happening to their kid, and us trying to find them as they're being moved like a shell game. That's not happening right now.
Well, your smile lights up a room, and your story is very, very inspiring. I mean, this is honestly, it's wonderful to be able to hear that, like, it has gotten to this point, and that, you know, I'm happy you're able to be able to take a longer vacation than just a couple of minutes. So that is wonderful to hear. So I'll follow up with one last question, and then anything that you want to be able to share. What is the best way for people to be able to reach out, get in touch with you, or to, help you, get in touch with you, promote? What can we do to be able to help you, and then be able to also get in touch with you?
Well, two things people can do now that we have kind of stage 2 going for our country, which is now we're moving into what do we have to do to help? Well, a lot of these victims are caught in the court procedures. So contributing to my website where we do expert witness testimony would be great. I literally have been in most courts of the country, and I don't mean actual individual courts, but I'm talking about the types of courts that a victim can be caught in, whether it's criminal, civil, even tickets or whatever. They're always something. And so I'd love to be able to continue to get them out of trouble with the law so they can move forward. And that's at traffickingvictimrescuecentral.org. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm having a class, which is available on that same website. It's October the 10th of 2020, and we'll probably repeat it again later in the year. And it's called Get Your Smile Back. And it's my effort to help women whose significant others are buying sex, whether it's stripping, porn, or prostitution. The wives and the girlfriends don't often know, and but they do feel the side effects of it, and it does change the way they view themselves and others. So we're trying to, and so we call it Get Your Smile Back. And just because that's happening doesn't mean they have to give up on whoever they love, but we'll show them how to maybe take a little power back and make that person get out of the gutter and back in the game with all of us.
Well, Dottie, thank you so much for your time and for what you do for all of humanity. Essentially, I can't say just the community because it is so widespread. Any last words for anybody that is still listening to us?
Well, thank you. I'm so glad that you're still here and that you're interested. And my website, I'm pretty sure my phone number's on there. If it's not, it's on LinkedIn at Dottie Laster. And I always answer my phone, so give me a call.
Well, Dottie, thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. And you will be speaking at the RedM Summit. I believe it's October 3rd. I don't know if I'm supposed to say the date or not. They can edit this out. But Dottie Laster should be speaking at the RedM Summit October 3rd. If you want more information, please reach out to David Reed, myself, or anyone else associated with the RedM movement, and look forward to being able to bring you more of these conversations with other people within the human trafficking and sex trafficking community that are fighting for all of the survivors out there. Thank you guys so much for listening. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
I really didn't know how to end that. Gosh, I hope they edit that better than what I said, because that was blah, 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 blah. Wow, Dottie, thank you so much. I really, really, really do appreciate it. You are absolutely amazing. Those were some like the stories there. Like that's what's going to. That's just you. You can't help but listen. Like, so I really hope that helps get the message out there and get more people involved in being able to help you and get your private jet.
Yeah, thank you. If I don't ask, I won't get it.
Hey, set your sights high. Set your
I
sights
get
high.
so
There's
tired of
nothing
being
wrong with it.
Can you imagine being in the airport with a victim that's terrified, getting on a plane with no ID and blah, 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 and wondering because the traffickers, they just make a phone call, and so it could be anyone, even someone that works there. So those are some of the most tense moments is trying to get on that plane to get to safety. In fact, one plane, they sent SWAT on the plane with the victim because the bad guy told them I trafficked her, and they were on the plane looking for me. They intercepted it at a layover. So yeah, no, I'd like my own jet, please.
Wow.
The joke was I wasn't there. I did it all with the phone. They never found me. So, and of course she told him I had rescued her. That helped a lot too. So anyhow, yeah, he shut down the whole airport and they boarded the plane on the tarmac. So yeah, I'm glad I wasn't there. That would have been fun.
Oh my God.
So anyhow.
See all these great stories. It's a good thing we're still recording. So if anybody's watching this, feel free to just boop, 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 cut that.
Yeah, these things happen on a daily basis. That's why I'm so happy right now. I don't have to deal with that.
Well, I'm happy that you are happy. You're doing amazing things for so many people, and I'm glad I've got the chance to be able to have you on. This isn't my show. This is I don't know. I guess we're calling it the RedM show. I'm honored to be able to have the opportunity to be able to interview you, and thank you so much for all that you do.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you much, and you'll carry me forward. I just had a great win in court, and it's going to set us up for another win coming up. So, anyhow, the job never ends. That 80%.
Well, like I said, thank you so much. All right, Dottie. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.
All right. Well, thanks. Hope you get to finish your lunch. I'm going to drink my tea.
Oh, I got that. Yeah, I did get the lunch finished. And as soon as this gets done, what I'll do is whenever they get the final clip or whatever, I'm guessing you'll probably want to be able to listen or to it. I never watch anything I do after the fact because I don't like my voice. But if you still want to be able to see it, I'll be sure that you get the chance to be able to get it. And then you could be able to publicize it and share it out there with your network and stuff.
Great. Would love to do that. And don't worry, none of us like our voices. It's just our brain tricking us. Your voice is fine.
Thank you, Dottie. All right. Have a good day.
Have a good Bye.
Bye.